The rain hammered against the cracked windows of the government surplus building as Park Hyun stared at the auction list. His hands shook slightly as he held the coffee-stained paper. 3 months behind on rent, 2 months behind on his salvage equipment payments, and his business partner Kim Bo was starting to look at him with those worried eyes again. Lot 247, Hyun read aloud to himself. Industrial hangar facility. Remote location. Structural concerns noted. Starting bid $1. $1. In all his years working salvage operations, Hyun had never seen government property go for $1. There had to be a catch. There was always a catch. The auction hall buzzed with the usual crowd of scrap dealers, construction companies, and military surplus hunters. Most of them clustered around the big-ticket items. Decommissioned vehicles, surplus electronics, bulk materials. Nobody seemed interested in Lot 247. When the auctioneer called the number, Hyun raised his hand without thinking. $1 to bidder 47, the auctioneer announced. He looked around the room with bored eyes. Any other bids? Silence, going once. Going twice? Sold to bidder 47 for $1. Hyun felt his stomach drop. What had he just done? After the auction, he approached the government clerk handling the paperwork. The man's nameplate read Lee Day, and he looked tired, like he had been working this job for far too long. Congratulations on your purchase, Lee Day said without enthusiasm. He pulled out a thick folder of documents. Just need you to sign these forms. Hyun started reading the first page, but Lee Day waved his hand impatiently. Standard liability waivers, Lee Day explained. The facility has some structural issues. Power fluctuations. Equipment malfunctions. That sort of thing. What kind of equipment malfunctions? Hyun asked. Lee Day paused, his pen hovering over the signature line. Electronics tend to act up near the facility. Probably just old wiring. The place has been empty for 50 years. 50 years? Why so long? Previous owners had problems with it. Lee Day's voice carried a strange tone. Look, do you want the property or not? I have other buyers interested. Hyun doubted that was true, but he signed anyway. What choice did he have? $1 was all he could afford to lose. The final document caught his attention. It included a clause about non-interference with existing automated systems. What automated systems? Hyun asked. Probably just security cameras. Old government buildings always have those clauses. Lee Day gathered the papers quickly. Congratulations, Mr. Park, the hangar is yours. 3 days later, Hyun and Bo drove out to the facility. The address led them down a series of increasingly remote roads until they were deep in the countryside, surrounded by empty fields and old forests. This is crazy, Bo muttered for the 10th time. We should be looking for normal salvage jobs, not chasing after dollar buildings in the middle of nowhere. Normal salvage jobs don't pay enough to keep us afloat, Hyun replied. We need something big, something that will get us back on our feet. The hangar appeared suddenly through the trees. It was massive, easily the size of an aircraft carrier hangar with curved metal walls that gleamed dully in the afternoon sun. The building looked in perfect condition, which made Hyun suspicious immediately. That doesn't look like it has structural problems, Bo observed. They parked near the main entrance. The doors were enormous, designed to accommodate vehicles much larger than anything Hyun had ever seen. A smaller personnel door was set into the main entrance. Hyun tried the handle. Locked, but not with a normal lock. Instead, there was a hand scanner next to the door. Government biometric lock, Bo said. Those cost more than our truck. Lee Day said the place was abandoned, Hyun muttered. He placed his hand on the scanner, not expecting anything to happen. The scanner beeped softly and turned green. The massive doors began to slide open with a deep rumbling sound. Both men stepped back in surprise. How did it know your handprint? Bo asked. Maybe it recognizes the new owner. Hyun suggested, but his voice sounded uncertain even to himself. The doors finished opening, revealing the interior of the hangar. Emergency lighting flickered on automatically, casting long shadows across the vast space. In the center of the hangar sat something that made both men stop breathing. It was a ship. Not a normal ship. This was clearly designed for space travel. But it was unlike anything Hyun had ever seen in pictures or movies. The hull was dark metal that seemed to absorb light, covered in strange patterns that might have been battle damage or might have been decorative. Crystalline formations grew along its surface like metallic coral. The ship was enormous, at least 300 meters long and nearly as wide as the hangar itself. It had the brutal, functional look of a warship, but its design was completely alien. Weapon ports dotted its hull, though the weapons themselves were unlike anything in human arsenals. "What is that?" Bo whispered. Hyun walked slowly toward the ship, his footsteps echoing in the vast space. The emergency lights continued to flicker on ahead of him as if the building was tracking his movement. "I don't know," Hyun admitted, "but it's not human." "Maybe it's a movie prop," Bo suggested hopefully. "Some kind of science fiction film set." But even as he said it, both men knew that wasn't true. The ship had weight to it, presence. It felt real in a way that props never did. The air around it seemed different, charged with some kind of energy that made the hair on their arms stand up. Hyun approached the hull and reached out to touch it. The metal was warm despite the cool air in the hangar. "This thing is active," he said. "It's generating heat." "That's impossible," Bo replied. "The place has been abandoned for 50 years. As if responding to his words, lights began to flicker on inside the ship. Through transparent sections of the hull, they could see corridors and chambers illuminating in sequence. "We should leave," Bo said urgently. "We should leave right now and forget about this place," but Hyun couldn't move. He stared up at the massive vessel, his mind racing. This wasn't just salvage, this was something incredible. Something that could change everything. "Look at the technology," he whispered. "Even if we can only understand a fraction of it, we could revolutionize space travel. Energy production. Maybe even weapon systems. Or it could kill us," Bo pointed out. "You don't just find alien warships sitting in abandoned hangars. This is the kind of thing governments classify and lock away forever." "The government just sold it to me for $1, Hyun reminded him, which should tell you something about how dangerous it is. More lights activated on the ship. Now they could see that it wasn't empty. There were systems running, displays showing information and scripts neither man could read. "We need to document everything," Hyun decided. "Take pictures, measurements, scan what we can. Even if we can't figure out how it works, we can prove it exists. And then what? Sell it to the highest bidder? Then we decide what to do with the most important discovery in human history." Bo looked at his friend with growing concern. Hyun's eyes had taken on a strange intensity, a focus that worried him. "Promise me something," Bo said. "Promise me we'll be careful. No touching anything we don't understand. No trying to activate systems. We document and we leave." "I promise," Hyun agreed. But as they began their examination of the ship, neither man noticed the subtle changes happening around them. The hangar's power systems, dormant for decades, quietly came online. Security sensors tracked their movements. And deep within the alien vessel, something that had been waiting for a very long time finally began to wake up. The purchase of a $1 hangar was about to become the most expensive decision Park Hyun would ever make. Park Hyun couldn't sleep. 3 days had passed since their discovery, and he found himself returning to the hangar every morning despite Bo's growing protests. Each visit revealed new details about the mysterious ship, and each detail made him more certain that they had stumbled onto something extraordinary. "The hull composition is unlike anything I've seen," Hyun muttered, reviewing his notes. "It's not steel, not aluminum, not any metal I recognize. But it's definitely manufactured." Bo sat uncomfortably on a folding chair they had brought from home. "Maybe it's some kind of experimental military project. Something classified. Look at the design," Hyun pointed to his sketches. "Human military ships are built for efficiency. This thing is built for war, real war, the kind where entire planets are at stake." The ship dominated the hangar like a sleeping giant. In daylight, streaming through high windows, they could see more details. The hull wasn't smooth, it was covered in scars that looked like battle damage. Deep gouges ran along its sides, and entire sections had been repaired with metal that didn't quite match the original. "Whatever this thing fought," Hyun said, "it barely survived." They had been documenting everything methodically. Hyun used his salvage scanner to map the exterior, while Bo took hundreds of photographs from every angle. But their equipment kept malfunctioning near the ship. The scanner would display impossible readings, showing internal structures that shifted and changed between scans. Cameras would capture images with strange artifacts, lights that weren't visible to the naked eye, shadows that fell in the wrong directions. "The temperature keeps dropping near the hull," Bo observed, checking his thermometer. 10 degrees colder than the rest of the hangar. "Energy absorption," Hyun theorized. "The ship is pulling heat from the environment to power something." "Power what?" Before Hyun could answer, Their conversation was interrupted by a sound neither man had heard before. It was low and rhythmic like a heartbeat coming from deep within the ship. Both men froze. "Did you hear that?" Bo whispered. The sound came again, stronger this time. Then lights began pulsing along the hull in the same rhythm, creating patterns that seemed almost like nerve impulses racing through a vast organism. "It's responding to us," Hyun realized. "The ship knows we're here. That's impossible. It's been dead for 50 years. But even as Bo spoke, more systems came online. Displays flickered to life in the transparent sections of the hull. Strange symbols scrolled across screens in chambers they could see but not reach. Then they heard the voice. It didn't come from speakers. Instead, it seemed to speak directly inside their minds, clear and unmistakable. Finally, the voice said in perfect Korean, "I was beginning to think no one would ever come." Both men stumbled backward, Hyun grabbing Bo's arm for support. "Who's there?" Hyun called out. "Show yourself." "I cannot show myself in the way you mean," the voice replied. "I exist within the ship's systems. You may call me Choi Won." "You're an artificial intelligence," Bo said, his voice shaking. "Among other things," Won confirmed, "though I was once as human as you are." The lights on the ship pulsed brighter, and suddenly the air around them filled with a holographic display. Images appeared in mid-air, showing star charts, technical diagrams, and scenes of space battles on a scale that made both men dizzy. "I have been waiting for someone to claim this vessel," Won continued. "Someone with the intelligence to recognize its value and the courage to accept its responsibility." "Responsibility for what?" Hyun asked. The holographic display shifted, showing Earth from space. But this wasn't the Earth they knew. This Earth was scarred by massive impacts, its surface covered in strange geometric patterns that pulsed with malevolent energy. "This is Earth's future," Won explained. 800 years from your time." Humanity had expanded across the galaxy, built an empire among the stars. We thought we were the masters of our destiny. The images changed, showing vast fleets of human ships engaged in battle against something terrible. The enemy vessels were wrong in ways that hurt to look at. They twisted space around themselves, defying the basic laws of physics. "We were wrong," Won said simply. "The Devourers found us." "Devourers?" Hyun echoed. "Beings from outside our galaxy, perhaps outside our reality entirely. They consume civilizations, absorb their knowledge and technology, then move on to the next target. They had destroyed countless species before they found humanity." Bo sank into his chair, overwhelmed by what he was seeing. "This is insane. You're telling us this ship is from the future?" "Not from the future," Won corrected. "Sent to the past. This vessel, the Aegis Eternal, was humanity's last desperate gambit. We couldn't defeat the Devourers in direct combat, but we discovered something they hadn't anticipated: temporal manipulation technology." The holographic display showed the ship they stood beside, but in its prime. It was magnificent, bristling with weapons that could crack moons and powered by engines that bent space itself. The plan was simple in concept, impossibly complex in execution. Won continued. "Send our most advanced warships back through time, scatter them across Earth's history, create a temporal network that would give humanity the knowledge and tools needed to prepare for the coming war." "How many ships?" Hyun asked. "Dozens, hidden in various time periods, guarded by uploaded consciousness like myself. Some are buried beneath ancient cities. Others rest at the bottom of oceans. This hangar was built in the 1970s specifically to house the Aegis Eternal after its arrival. The government knows about this," Bo realized. "That's why they sold it for $1. They've been trying to get rid of it." One's voice carried a note of dark amusement. "They have tried to claim this ship many times over the decades. Scientists, military officers, politicians, all convinced they could master its technology through force." The holographic display shifted again, showing the interior of the hangar over the years. Hyun saw teams of people in military uniforms setting up equipment around the ship, trying to cut into its hull, attempting to override its systems. Then he saw what happened to them. The ship's defenses were swift and decisive. Energy fields that stopped hearts instantly, gravitational anomalies that crushed intruders in seconds. Sometimes the ship simply made people disappear, leaving behind only empty uniforms. "You killed them," Bo said, horror creeping into his voice. "I protected this vessel from those who would misuse its power." Juan replied without remorse. The technology aboard the Aegis Eternal could advance human civilization by millennia, or it could destroy your species entirely. It requires someone worthy to wield it. And you think that's me? Hyun asked. I think you have potential, Juan said. You purchased this facility without knowing what it contained. You approached the ship with curiosity rather than greed, and most importantly, you asked the right questions. What questions? You wondered about responsibility, about what humanity could become with this technology. Others have asked only about profit and power. The holographic display faded, leaving them in the dim emergency lighting. The Devourers will find Earth eventually. Juan continued. Our temporal manipulations bought humanity time, but they also created ripples in spacetime that the enemy can track. In approximately 50 years they will arrive. Earth must be ready. Ready how? Hyun asked. That depends on you. The Aegis Eternal will accept only one commander, someone who can link their consciousness with its systems, understand its weapons, master its capabilities. But the process is dangerous. Many who have attempted it have died. Bo grabbed Hyun's arm. Don't even think about it. This is insane. We should leave right now and never come back. But Hyun was staring up at the massive ship, his mind racing with possibilities. Show me, he said to Juan. Show you what? Show me what this ship can do. Show me what humanity is up against. If I'm going to make this decision, I need to understand what's at stake. The ship's lights pulsed brighter, and Juan's voice carried a note of approval. Very well, but understand this. Once you see the full scope of the coming war, you cannot unsee it. Once you understand humanity's true destiny, you cannot turn away from it. Are you prepared for that burden? Hyun looked at Bo, seeing fear and concern in his friend's eyes. Then he looked back at the ship. Humanity's hope from a dark future, waiting for someone brave enough or foolish enough to claim it. I'm prepared, he said. The ship's hull began to glow with an inner light, and somewhere deep within its systems, Choi Wan began preparing to show Park Hyun exactly what it meant to hold the fate of human civilization in his hands. The ship's hull dissolved before Park Hyun's eyes, becoming transparent as glass. He could see into its interior now. Vast corridors that stretched beyond what should have been possible. Chambers filled with technology that defied understanding, and at its heart, a command center that pulsed with the same rhythm as a living heart. The Aegis Eternal is more than a warship, Choi Wan explained, as they walked toward what had appeared to be solid metal moments before. It is a synthesis of human engineering and technologies we salvaged from the species the Devourers had consumed before us. Hyun reached out tentatively and found he could pass through the hull as if it were made of air. Kimbo followed reluctantly, his face pale with fear. Inside, the ship was even more impossible than its exterior suggested. The corridors were wide enough for vehicles, but the walls curved in ways that made Hyun's eyes water. Gravity seemed to work differently here. They walked on surfaces that should have been walls, and stairs led upward into what looked like infinite space. The ship exists in folded space, Juan explained, his voice echoing from everywhere and nowhere. Its interior is larger than its exterior dimensions suggest. This technology allows us to carry the resources of an entire civilization within a single vessel. They passed chambers containing what looked like entire forests, complete with flowing streams and alien wildlife. Other rooms held manufacturing facilities that were building equipment from pure energy. In one vast space, Hyun saw what appeared to be a small city, empty but ready for habitation. Self-sufficient ecosystem, Juan noted. The ship can sustain a crew of 10,000 for centuries without outside resources. Where is the crew? Bo asked nervously. There is no crew. The Aegis Eternal was designed to operate with a single commander linked to its systems. Everyone else aboard would be passengers. They reached the command center, and Hyun's breath caught in his throat. The chamber was enormous, dominated by a throne-like chair surrounded by holographic displays showing more information than any human mind could process. Star charts, tactical analyses, weapon systems, shield generators, all controlled by thought alone. This is where the ship's commander interfaces with its systems, Juan explained. Through direct neural connection, one person can coordinate the activities of an entire fleet. One person controls all of this? Hyun asked. One person bears the responsibility for all of this, Juan corrected, and that responsibility has a price. The holographic displays shifted, showing Hyun scenes from the future war. He watched human fleets engage the Devourers in battles that spanned solar systems. He saw worlds being consumed, their populations absorbed into the enemy's collective consciousness. He witnessed the desperate final stands as humanity's last strongholds fell one by one. "This is what we were fighting," Juan said. "And this is why we failed." "You had all this technology," Hyun protested. "Ships that can fold space, weapons that can destroy planets. How could you lose?" "Because the Devourers learn. Every ship they destroy, every world they consume, every species they absorb, it all becomes part of their knowledge. They adapt faster than we can innovate. By the end, they were using our own technologies against us, but better than we ever could." The images changed, showing the final battle for Earth. Hyun watched in horror as the planet's surface was transformed, its cities replaced by vast organic structures that pulsed with alien intelligence. The last human stronghold was a space station called Haven, Juan continued. "We had perhaps 1 million survivors scattered across 12 ships. The Devourers had already consumed the rest of our species. What happened? We made the hardest decision any civilization can make. We chose to sacrifice our present to save our future." The holographic display showed the creation of the temporal network. Hyun watched as ship after ship was sent backward through time, their crews accepting that they would never see their own era again. "Volunteers?" he asked. "All of us," one confirmed. "We knew we were going to die anyway. At least this way our deaths might have meaning." Bo had been silent throughout the tour, but now he spoke up. "You said many people have died trying to link with this ship. Show us," one hesitated. "That knowledge will not help your decision." "Show us," Hyun insisted. The command center filled with ghostly images of the hangar over the decades. Hyun saw scientists in white coats attempting to interface with crude versions of the command throne, military officers trying to force their way into the ship's systems through external computers, politicians demanding that the ship obey their authority. In every case, the result was the same. The ship's defenses activated and the intruders died, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, but always permanently. "The neural interface is not something that can be forced," Juan explained. "It requires complete mental synchronization with the ship's consciousness. Most humans lack the cognitive flexibility to achieve this safely." "What about those who do achieve it?" Hyun asked. Juan's silence stretched uncomfortably long. "Show me," Hyun demanded. The holographic display changed, showing the command chair occupied by a figure in military uniform. The person sat perfectly still, their eyes open but unseeing, connected to the ship through cables that emerged from the throne itself. "Admiral Chen Li," Juan said quietly, "the first commander of the Aegis Eternal. She linked with the ship during the final battle and never disconnected. Is she dead?" "Not exactly. Her consciousness merged completely with the ship's systems. She became part of the vessel itself, unable to exist independently. When we sent the ship back through time, her mind came with it." "She's still here?" Bo asked in horror. "Fragments of her. Memories, instincts, tactical knowledge. But her personality, her humanity, that was lost in the merger." Hyun stared at the command throne, understanding for the first time what Juan was really asking of him. "You want me to become like her," he said. "I want you to succeed where she failed," Juan replied. "The interface technology has been refined since her time. It's possible to maintain your individual identity while accessing the ship's capabilities. But the risk remains." "What risk exactly?" "Mental dissolution. Your consciousness could be absorbed into the ship's systems, leaving your body alive but your mind scattered across 1,000 different subsystems. Or you could suffer cognitive overload. Your brain simply couldn't handle the information flow and would shut down permanently." Bo grabbed Hyun's arm. "This is insane. You're talking about playing Russian roulette with your mind. The alternative is waiting for the Devourers to arrive and watching our species be consumed," Juan pointed out. 50 years is not long to prepare for a war that spans galaxies." Hyun walked to the command throne and placed his hand on its surface. The metal was warm, almost organic in texture. "What happens if I succeed?" he asked. "You become the guardian of humanity's future," Juan replied. "You gain access to 800 years of advanced human knowledge, plus the technologies we salvaged from dozens of consumed civilizations. You could guide Earth's development, preparing our species for the coming war. And if I fail, then you die and I continue waiting for someone more suitable." "How many people have you been waiting for?" Bo asked. "You are the 15th to reach this point," Juan admitted. The others lacked either the intelligence to understand what was required or the courage to attempt it. Hyun looked around the command center one more time, taking in the vast displays showing star charts of a galaxy filled with dead civilizations. Somewhere out there, the Devourers were still advancing, still consuming, still learning. "If I do this," he said slowly, "I won't be human anymore, will I?" "You will be more than human," Juan replied. "And less. The choice is yours, Park Hyun, but choose quickly. The ship's systems are already responding to your presence. Delaying the decision will only make the interface more difficult." As if responding to Juan's words, the command throne began to glow with an inner light. Cables emerged from its surface, writhing like living things, reaching toward Hyun. Bo stepped between his friend and the chair. "Don't do this. We can find another way. We can warn the government, prepare Earth's defenses without risking your life." "The government has known about this ship for 50 years, Hyun pointed out. "What have they accomplished? Nothing. They're too afraid of the technology to use it properly." "And you're not afraid?" Hyun looked at his friend honestly. "I'm terrified, but I'm more afraid of what happens to humanity if I walk away." The ship's systems pulsed around them, waiting for his decision. In the holographic displays, distant stars wheeled in their courses, carrying the seeds of humanity's future destruction ever closer to Earth. Park Hyun took a deep breath and stepped toward the command throne. "Show me how to save our species," he said. The neural interface cables moved like living serpents as they approached Park Hyun's head. He forced himself to remain still as they made contact with his temples, feeling a strange tingling sensation as the ship's systems began to probe his mind. "The trials will test every aspect of your character," Choi Won explained, his voice seeming to come from inside Hyun's skull now. "Intelligence, courage, compassion, and most importantly, your ability to make impossible decisions under pressure." Kim Bo watched helplessly as his friend's body went rigid in the command throne. Hyun's eyes rolled back, showing only white, and his breathing became shallow and irregular. "What's happening to him?" Bo demanded. "He is experiencing the first trial," Won replied. "Combat leadership under extreme conditions." Hyun found himself standing on the bridge of a human warship, surrounded by officers who looked to him for orders. Through the main viewport, he could see a battle raging in space around them. Human ships were fighting desperately against Devourer vessels, but they were clearly losing. "Admiral, we're down to 60% of our fleet," reported a young woman at the tactical station. "The enemy is adapting to our weapons faster than we can modify them." Hyun's mind was filled with knowledge he had never possessed. Tactical protocols, ship capabilities, weapon specifications. He understood instinctively that this was not just a simulation, but a real battle from the future war. Played out in perfect detail. "Concentrate fire on their command ship," he ordered, the words coming naturally despite never having commanded anything larger than a salvage crew. "We've tried that, sir. Their shields adapt to our energy frequencies within minutes." Hyun studied the tactical display, his enhanced awareness processing information at incredible speed. The Devourer ships were wrong in ways that hurt to perceive directly. They twisted space around themselves, making it impossible to predict their movements or target them effectively. "They're learning from each exchange," he realized. "Every shot we fire teaches them how to defend against the next one." "What are your orders, Admiral?" In the real world, Bo saw Hyun's body convulsing in the command throne as his mind grappled with tactical problems beyond human comprehension. "The trial simulates actual battles from our war with the Devourers," Won explained. "If he makes the same mistakes we made, the simulation will end in defeat. He must find solutions that we could not." On the simulated bridge, Hyun watched as another human ship was consumed by Devourer technology, its hull transforming into something organic and alien before it turned its weapons on its former allies. "They don't just destroy our ships," Hyun said with growing horror. "They convert them." "Yes, Admiral. Every vessel we lose becomes part of their fleet." The tactical situation was hopeless by conventional standards. The human fleet was outnumbered, outgunned, and facing an enemy that learned from every engagement. But Hyun's enhanced mind saw possibilities that normal human cognition would miss. "All ships implement Protocol 7, he commanded. "Sir, Protocol 7 doesn't exist. It does now. All vessels are to coordinate a simultaneous self-destruct sequence, but delay the detonation by exactly 47 seconds. During that window, concentrate all remaining firepower on spatial coordinates Delta 7 Alpha." The bridge crew looked confused. but they carried out his orders. Across the fleet, human ships began their self-destruct sequences while focusing their weapons on what appeared to be empty space. "Admiral, there's nothing at those coordinates. There will be." 47 seconds later, the Devourer ships moved to occupy the exact positions Hyun had predicted, drawn by their desire to convert the self-destructing human vessels. At that moment, the combined firepower of the entire fleet struck them simultaneously, overwhelming their adaptive defenses before they could adjust. The simulation ended with a human victory, but at terrible cost. Nearly the entire fleet had been sacrificed to destroy a single enemy formation. "Acceptable casualties," Wan commented, as Hyun returned to awareness in the command throne. "Acceptable?" Hyun gasped. "I just killed thousands of people. You saved millions of others. The trial tests your willingness to make hard choices." But that was only the first scenario. Before Hyun could protest, the cables tightened their grip and another simulation began. This time, he stood in the command center of a space station orbiting Earth. The planet below was under attack, its surface being transformed by Devourer biotechnology. Panic-stricken civilians crowded evacuation ships, but there weren't enough vessels to save everyone. "Admiral, we have transport capacity for 50,000 people," reported the station commander. "But there are 12 million civilians still on the surface. Time until the planet is completely converted?" 6 hours, sir." Hyun stared at the tactical display, his enhanced mind processing thousands of variables simultaneously. There had to be a solution, some way to save more people. "What about the military transports?" "Already committed to evacuation duties, sir." "Industrial vessels? Cargo ships?" "Every available craft is being used. We simply don't have enough space." The simulation forced Hyun to experience the weight of command, the knowledge that his decisions would determine who lived and who died. He could see the faces of the civilians on the planet's surface, could hear their desperate transmissions begging for rescue. In the hangar, Bo watched his friend's vital signs fluctuate wildly. "He's dying," he told Wan urgently. "He is learning," Wan replied coldly. "The trials cannot be stopped once they have begun." The second simulation ended with Hyun managing to save 70,000 people instead of 50,000, but 11 million still died as Earth was consumed. The weight of those deaths settled on his mind like a physical burden. "You did better than the original commander in that scenario," Wan noted. "She saved only 30,000. The third trial was even worse. Hyun found himself forced to choose between saving a colony world full of children or preserving a research station that held the key to a new weapon technology. The fourth trial required him to decide whether to sacrifice Earth's ecosystem to power a weapon that might stop the Devourers. The fifth trial presented him with the choice between saving humanity's genetic diversity or preserving their cultural knowledge. Each scenario was designed to break him, to test whether he could make decisions that would haunt him forever while still retaining enough humanity to make the right choice. By the seventh trial, Hyun's body was near collapse. His heart rate was dangerously high and his brain showed signs of severe stress. But his mind had been transformed by the experience, expanded beyond normal human limitations. The final trial was the one that had broken Admiral Chen Li and every other potential commander who had attempted it. Hyun stood in the command center of the last human stronghold as the Devourers closed in for the final assault. He had two choices. Use the temporal technology to send the human fleet back in time, giving past humanity a chance to prepare for the coming war, or use that same technology to evacuate the surviving population to a distant galaxy where they might rebuild civilization. Both options required the same energy source. The remaining human fleet would have to be sacrificed to power the temporal manipulation technology. But the energy was sufficient for only one option: save the past or save the present. "What are your orders, Admiral?" asked the tactical officer. Hyun stared at the display showing the last million humans huddled in their final refuge. These were the survivors of a war that had consumed entire worlds, the last representatives of human civilization. They deserved to live, to continue their species in safety, but if he saved them, the past would remain unchanged. The Devourers would still find Earth in 50 years, and this time there would be no temporal network to provide warning or advanced technology. "Admiral, the enemy will be within weapons range in 30 minutes. We need a decision. In the original timeline, Admiral Chen Li had chosen to save the technology and sacrifice the present. Her decision had created the temporal network that brought the Aegis Eternal to Hyun's time, but it had also doomed the last survivors of humanity. Hyun closed his eyes and made a different choice. Activate Temporal Displacement Protocol, he commanded. Target the surviving population. Destination Andromeda Galaxy, year 2387. Sir, that will leave us without enough power to send the warning to the past. I know, but even as he gave the order, Hyun's enhanced mind saw a third option, a solution so dangerous and unprecedented that it had never been attempted. Belay that order, he said suddenly. New plan. We're going to use the ship's consciousness transfer technology to upload every human mind to the temporal network itself. Their bodies will die, but their personalities, memories, and knowledge will survive in the system. Sir, that's never been tested on such a scale. Then we're going to test it now, and we're going to use the temporal network not just to send ships back in time, but to send the uploaded consciousness of our entire civilization. Past humanity won't just get our technology. They'll get our experience, our knowledge, our tactical understanding. The simulation ran his new scenario. It was risky beyond measure, requiring precision that bordered on impossible, but it worked. The uploaded consciousness of future humanity survived in the temporal network, guiding and teaching their ancestors, while the ships carried advanced technology to key points in history. Park Hyun opened his eyes to find himself still connected to the command throne, but everything had changed. The ship's systems flowed through his consciousness like water, and he could perceive every component of the Aegis Eternal as clearly as his own heartbeat. The vessel wasn't just a machine anymore. It was an extension of his body, responding to his thoughts before he was fully aware of them. Kimbo rushed to his side, relief flooding his face. Hyun, are you alive? You've been unconscious for 6 hours. Hyun tried to speak, but when he opened his mouth, his voice carried harmonics that resonated through the ship's hull. The sound was unmistakably human, yet somehow more than human. I'm alive, he said, though he wasn't entirely certain what that meant anymore. But I'm also something else now. Through the ship's sensors, he could perceive not just the hangar, but the entire surrounding area. Every living creature within 50 kilometers registered in his awareness. Birds in the sky, insects in the grass, even bacteria in the soil. The level of detail was overwhelming. The integration process is still stabilizing, Choi Won explained, his voice now coming from the ship's communication systems rather than directly into their minds. Your consciousness is learning to exist across multiple states simultaneously, human awareness and ship consciousness. How do you feel? Bo asked, studying his friend's face with concern. Hyun considered the question carefully. Like I'm standing in a library that contains the knowledge of entire civilizations, but I can only read one book at a time. The information is there, but I have to be careful not to lose myself in it. He disconnected from the neural interface, the cables retracting smoothly into the command throne. Standing up required conscious effort. His sense of balance had been altered by the integration, and he needed to remember how to coordinate. A single human body when part of his awareness was still distributed across the ship's systems. Show me what I can do, Hyun said to Won. The ship's main displays activated, showing a tactical overview of Earth's current technological capabilities. Military forces, space assets, research facilities, all mapped in precise detail. The Aegis Eternal has been monitoring your planet's development since its arrival, Won explained. Human technology is progressing, but not quickly enough. At the current rate of advancement, Earth will still be decades behind what's needed to face the Devourers. Then we accelerate development, Hyun decided. Carefully, gradually. We can't just dump advanced technology on the world without destabilizing civilization. That wisdom is why the ship accepted you, Won said approvingly. Previous candidates wanted to use the ship's power immediately, without considering the consequences. Bo had been listening with growing unease. Hyun, you're talking about manipulating the entire course of human development. That's not something one person should decide. It's not something one person should have to decide, Hyun agreed. But the alternative is extinction. He activated the ship's holographic display, showing Bo the same images Won had shared earlier. Earth consumed by devourer technology, human civilization reduced to scattered refugees, entire star systems converted into alien biomachines. "This is what happens if we do nothing," Hyun said. "In 50 years, maybe less, they'll find us. And when they do, humanity as we know it will cease to exist." The weight of responsibility settled on Hyun's shoulders like a physical burden. Every decision he made from this point forward would affect billions of lives, not just in the present but across centuries of future history. "I'll need allies," he realized. "People I can trust with pieces of this knowledge. Scientists who can reverse engineer selected technologies. Military leaders who can understand the strategic implications. Politicians who can guide policy changes without revealing the truth." The ship's databases contain detailed psychological profiles of every person on Earth, one offered. "You can identify the most suitable candidates for recruitment." "That feels like cheating," Hyun said, "and dangerous. The moment we start treating people like game pieces instead of individuals, we become no better than the devourers." Bo looked relieved at his friend's response. "So what's the plan?" Hyun closed his eyes and let his consciousness expand into the ship's systems. Information flowed through his mind. Technological specifications, manufacturing processes, strategic analyses. But he filtered it carefully, taking only what he needed and leaving the rest for later exploration. "We start small," he decided. "I'll establish a private research company, ostensibly focused on advanced materials and energy systems. Bo will be my partner and business manager. We'll recruit a small team of scientists and engineers, giving them carefully selected pieces of technology to develop." "How carefully selected?" Bo asked. "Nothing that will immediately revolutionize society, but everything that will give humanity a foundation for rapid advancement when the time comes. Improved energy storage, stronger materials, more efficient computers. Technologies that seem like natural progressions from current research. The ship's manufacturing facilities could produce any technology in its databases, but Hyun resisted the temptation to simply build an army of advanced weapons. The Devourers had faced such weapons before and learned to counter them. Humanity's advantage would have to come from something else: creativity, adaptability, the ability to find solutions that had never been tried before. "What about the government?" Bo asked. "They know about this hangar. Eventually, they'll want to know what we're doing here. We'll give them what they want: a successful business venture that provides valuable technology for defense applications. But the real work will happen in secret, preparing humanity for a war they can't even imagine yet." Over the following weeks, Hyun began the delicate process of building his organization. Using the ship's advanced fabrication systems, he produced prototypes of revolutionary battery technology that could store 10 times more energy than current designs. The patents alone were worth millions, providing the funding needed for his research company. He recruited carefully, choosing scientists and engineers based not just on their expertise but on their ability to think creatively under pressure. Dr. Song Mi, a material scientist who had been marginalized by the academic establishment for her unconventional theories. Yang Jun, a computer engineer whose innovative approaches to quantum processing had been dismissed as impossible by his colleagues. None of them knew the true source of the technologies they were developing. As far as they were concerned, they were working for a well-funded startup, led by a brilliant but mysterious entrepreneur. Only Bo knew the full truth, and even he struggled to accept the reality of their situation. "Sometimes I wake up and think this is all an elaborate delusion," Bo confided one evening as they worked late in their new laboratory facility. "Alien. Warships, time travel, galactic wars, it sounds like science fiction." "I know," Hyun replied, not looking up from the quantum processor he was assembling. "But I can feel the ship's presence in my mind every moment. I can access 8 centuries of human knowledge just by thinking about it. The integration is becoming stronger every day." That was the part that worried Bo the most. His friend was changing, becoming something more than human but perhaps less human as well. Hyun's emotional responses were becoming more controlled, his decision-making process increasingly analytical. He was thinking on timescales that spanned decades, planning for contingencies that might not arise for generations. "Promise me something," Bo said. Promise me you won't lose yourself in all this. Don't become so focused on saving humanity that you forget what it means to be human. Hyun finally looked up from his work, and Bo was relieved to see genuine emotion in his eyes. I won't forget, Hyun promised. That's why I need you here. You're my anchor to who I used to be. 6 months after claiming the hangar, Hyun's company had produced 3 revolutionary technologies that were already being licensed to major corporations. The battery systems were being adapted for everything from electric vehicles to grid-scale energy storage. The advanced materials were finding applications in aerospace and military hardware. The quantum processors were laying the groundwork for computer systems that would make current supercomputers look like pocket calculators. But these visible successes were just the surface layer of Hyun's real work. In the secret levels beneath his research facility, connected to the hangar by underground tunnels, he was developing technologies that wouldn't be revealed for years or decades. Gravitational manipulation systems, energy shields, weapons that could disrupt molecular bonds at the quantum level, and throughout it all, the Aegis Eternal waited in its hangar, its systems ready to spring into action at a moment's notice. Choi Won had become Hyun's advisor and confidant, sharing the accumulated wisdom of humanity's future while helping him navigate the ethical complexities of his position. Other Guardian ships are beginning to stir, Won reported during one of their regular conferences. Your activation of the Aegis Eternal has created ripples in the temporal network. The other commanders are awakening from their long sleep. How many? Hyun asked. 17 vessels remain active across various time periods. Some guard technologies that won't be needed for decades. Others protect knowledge that could only be revealed after certain scientific breakthroughs.